Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. Time now for some football on this Friday edition of the show. On Sunday, we'll have two Confederation Championship finals. First, at the Olympiastadion in Berlin, Spain and England will do battle for the right to be called champions of Europe. And hours later, at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida, Argentina, the current World Cup holders, will lock horns with Colombia for the Copa America title. Our football analyst, Brent Sancho, has been following both tournaments, and he joins us now. Brent, welcome to the show. Let me start here. Which of these two finals intrigue you more? I think that's a tough one.
Well, it is a tough one. I think the Argentina-Colombia one intrigues me more, simply because I just feel that everything suggests that with Argentina's pedigree and being on this stage and being here, comes up against a Colombia team that I thought was outstanding. Of course, there's similarities to the European Cup, but I just think Argentina and their lack of form, I'm just really curious to see if they can beat this Colombia team that's been playing so well. Yeah,
well, since you have that as the more intriguing match, we'll continue the trend and talk about that one first. Colombia, undefeated in 28 internationals now. A very, very impressive record, we must say. Not often teams go that long in international football without a defeat. Is that something that, you know, is a concrete part of the analysis of this game?
Yeah, and when you do this, and I'm sure when we talk about the other finals, we'll have to stay on this trajectory. It's so easy when you analyze these situations. You talk about what ifs and maybes and best teams on paper. But Lance, we really have to go on what we see, what our eyes show us, and what has been factual. And what has been factual, as you rightfully mentioned, Colombia has been undefeated for quite some time. What has been factual is that this is a Colombia team that understands how to suffer without the ball. They understand how to win football games, of course, with that long winning streak that they have. They came off of a very difficult semi-finals against a very tough Uruguay team, of course, with 10 men. They have found ways to win. And football is about winning games. And Colombia, for me, knows how to win games. And you juxtapose that against an Argentina team that I think needs a lot of variables to go right for them. Lionel Messi needs to play well. He cannot not play well. You need Angel Di Maria to play well as well. You need a click in midfield for Argentina. And I think they need right choices up front. I would go with Julian Alvarez. And I think when you add all of that up together, factual stuff that we do know, you just feel that Colombia is there and thereabouts to march on and win the title.
Yeah, well, let me test you a little bit on a point that you just touched on, but I would like you to elucidate the point. Does Messi need to shine on Sunday for Argentina to win? Or can they win with Messi being just average?
Well, the good thing about the answer I'm about to give you, there is an example. He cannot play the way he played against Ecuador. That's a fact. So if that answers your question, it means that he has to not necessarily be Messi of old, but he has to be a contributor. And I don't think Argentina, and it's not just a Messi problem, but I think other parts of this entirety have not played well. And that's why I point to Di Maria. He's shown up, and of course, in the World Cup finals. He showed up in the Copa finals with good performances. They need him more than they need, of course, Messi to shine. They need a Rodrigo de Paul, of course, a McAllister in the middle of the field. They need to play well. They need all those factors to go well as a Lionel Messi to not play the way he played against Ecuador. And if that gives you a barometer as to what needs to happen, I think that's the best example you can have, Lance.
Yeah, so Brent, I'm getting the idea that, you're stressing the point that Argentina will need their supporting cast to be right behind Lionel Messi, and I get that. But now if we're looking at various factors as to, who has the advantage, then we can simply say that Colombia had to fight very, very hard against Uruguay, right? So I can say that they don't have much in their tank too, Brent, because they had to keep pushing on. They had that one goal, but they still had to put in a lot of effort. So can I say fatigue is a factor for them?
I normally would say that. I could probably be a contributor. But when you look at the fact that Colombia have not won a Copa in quite a long time, there's a lot of feeling, and this goes back to conversations. And let's be honest, they've had a couple of days rest. And in modern-day football, with the science that applies to it, it seemed more than enough time to get you there into some sort of optimum ability to be able to play. And I just think that with Colombia so close to the prize, have all this goodwill going with them in the undefeated record, playing some of the best football, mindful of the fact that they're coming up against an Argentina team that hasn't been particularly well, they would be smelling blood. And I think just that adrenaline factor that goes with what I just said, I just think that the fatigue factor becomes eliminated, because all they are concerned about as a team in the breakfast and the lunch conversations in training, we are a couple of minutes away, an hour or so, if it goes in extra time, from winning a COPA, something they have not done in a very, very long time.
But you could look at it that way, and then I could look at it by saying, but Brent, Argentina has the know-how to win. They have the experienced players, right? They've been there. Not so long ago, they've won the World Cup. So they know how to go about and get this job done, even with Messi not at his fullest. You know, just having him there, that experience, talking to the players, you know, sharing experiences of himself and how they went about getting the job done, that can, of course, you know, counter the argument that you made about Colombia being starved for a Copa America title and all of that.
Yeah, but it's one thing in football, and I'm very sure we're going to say similar for when we speak about the other finals, is turning on that light switch. You can't just switch on and start playing. And I just feel that some of the performances we've seen from some of the individuals in Argentina, it's too far off. When you compare it to the World Cup team, we saw them in the second round after the defeat to Saudi Arabia. They started to build and get better and better as the tournament went on. I can't say that about Argentina. I still saw in the Canadian game some dips in performances. So the point I'm making is, it's about being close to your best. And I don't think Argentina is anywhere close to their best. And that's why, despite what you mentioned about players having all this experience, you have to be able to perform. And in that performance, I just don't think they're close enough to their best. And I think that is the factor that may be the hindrance of them going on to win.
Right, and Brent, just one more from me on this particular competition. Do you expect for both teams to see any major changes from what we saw throughout the competition?
Yeah, there is some tinkering to do. I just wonder if Scaloni would, of course, have a juggle up front. I did say I would prefer to see Julian Alvarez. I think he's a little bit more mobile. It'd be interesting to see what he does in the middle of the park. Of course, with Colombia, they had a red card against Uruguay. Munoz would have to shift. Maybe are they going to make adjustments accordingly? They would have to. And how that goes. Munoz is a very important clog in the Colombian machine. But I think overall it's probably as is. But I think those adjustments may have a factor as to how the rhythm and the flow of the game goes.
Yeah, Brent, we're going to move on to the Euro final now. But just before we do that, the final is being played in Miami, which is now Lionel Messi's home city. Does that factor for the big man? Well, he's little, but he's
a big man.
He's big, yeah.
Well, it is his home city as it relates to Inter Miami, but I've played Colombia in Miami before, and I think there's more Colombians living in Miami than there is in Colombia. So
I hear you,
I'm not sure how much of a home city it will be.
Okay, all right, let's move to Spain, England now. A lot hinging on this match, and English fans have waited a very, very long time for the kind of international success they will be craving on Sunday. In fact, they've never won Euro. How big are their chances?
Listen, I can only go from what I've seen. I know there's a lot of romance and hope, and English fans and people who probably just want to see England win talk about they've turned it around. They haven't. They've played one good half of football. They've been fortuitous for most of the cup. And for me to suggest, look, they have a puncher's chance, we know that, because they're playing the game. And yes, that is understandable. But if I take it from what I've seen so far, Lance and Mariah, it's very difficult for me to see that England is favourites or England should win this. I still think very much that the Spaniards are very much the favourites to win this football match because, as I said, similarly with Argentina, England has not been good. Gareth Southgate hasn't been good in a lot of his changes, because even if you go to the Ollie Watkins change, he made it very, very, very late. Of course, fortuitous and high scientist 2020, every time he would look like he's a genius. But I just think that all those factors are still quite a step to make to catch up from what we've seen from the Spaniards so far, who really haven't put a foot wrong in the tournament.
Yeah, I want to ask you quickly too, as a former international yourself, and the kind of pressure that players are under. It just seems to me that no matter what the sport is, English players are under immense pressure, not just from the fans, but from the media. Do you think these players are able to handle that, and is that something that the coach needs to shield them from?
Yeah, I spoke about it, Lance, in the lead up to the Holland game. I admitted the fact that I just think that the England team looks scared. When you look at when they're in possession of the football, they double think in what pass they should make. There's always a hesitation. There's not really a fluidity, a freedom of expression that we see these similar players do in their clubs. Yes, they're trying. Yes, there's endeavor. Yes, there's a desire to win. But to actually execute on plays, there is a hesitancy. When you look at Gareth Southgate, the selection he makes, he goes back to that reset factory mode because that's his safe mode, because there's a fear factor. And so I have to agree with your point as it relates to the pressure. I've seen it so many times with England teams. They crumble under the pressure. We saw it against Italy in the last Euros, that they crumbled under the pressure. And so I think that I feel the same way again. Yes, they would have done well in the semi-finals and beat the Dutch. But I think coming into this now, all of a sudden, there is an expectancy again. How are the English players and coaching staff handle that? I just don't think they've handled it well throughout the tournament. And I think that would be another factor that might be a hindrance towards the English.
And given the fact that this is an away final for them, because they've lost finals at home in international before, but this is in Germany, so they don't have a home assignment. Does that take a little bit of the heat off, even a little?
Not necessarily, because obviously with handheld devices and all of that buzzing around the camp, there's still a lot of messages coming in, social media, newspaper reports, everything, agents calling, family calling. It goes on and on and on. It's very hard to block it out because, again, we live in a world that it's fast-paced in terms of information. And as you know, Lance, England dissects everything. So it's on every major news station and media outlet, and because of that, the players will feel it. And although they're playing in Germany, it might be a little bit less of a situation, but it's still a problem.
Yeah, both Spain and England are yet to concede more than a single goal in normal time in any of the matches they've played in Euro, which speaks to their solidity defensively. Is that a factor for both teams when you analyze this final?
I think so. I think it is a factor. But again, I have to go with what I've seen. When you look at the opponents that England has faced offensively, it's been quite tame compared to of course, the Spaniards. They've had to face some very competitive. They buckled under the Germans when they made the array of substitutes and had them under some significant duress. We saw them going a goal down against Georgia with the pace and the guy that they have. And of course, we saw some of those sorts of results with Spain having to face some very difficult opponents. And you put that, of course, up against what England has faced defensively, and they still look a bit vulnerable in some occasions against Slovakia and of course, at times against Holland. You would want to think that if you were to compare defenses, I would say that the Spaniards look a lot more solid. I do think England has a conundrum, and I guess we're going to have a talk about it at some point, is whether or not they go with Trippier, whether or not they stick with the back three, of course, Trippier or Luke Shaw. Those sorts of questions come into play, and whether or not that would be, some of the questions that Spain will put to them.
Yeah, I want to ask you quickly something about Spain, but does Harry Kane start in this game? There's been a lot of discussion about his value to this current team, and we know that he's England's best striker, but there is the feeling that he's getting too much playing time. I pretty much know that Southgate will start him, knowing, Southgate's approach. But if you were the England coach, does Harry Kane start this final?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't start him. He's been poor. And I think the man there on your screen has come in and brought a different dimension to the team. He runs in behind. I think that's what England needs. They need someone to stretch the pitch a bit and of course, make the pitch a bit longer. And that's what Ollie Watkins brings. I would have obviously started him, but as you rightfully said, we all know what Gareth Southgate would do. He would not make that decision. And I think again, you know, Lance, when you add all these factors up, it's hard to say, or for me to sit here and say, well, England will win, or England has a chance to win. I just think there's so many factors that we've spoken about in this short space of time that all points to challenges that England will have coming in against the Spanish.
Yeah, let's talk quickly about Lamine Yamal, the 16-year-old. Well, he turned 17 on Saturday, the day before the final. A lot of time, Brent, when we analyze sport, we talk about experience and experience being valuable. There are times that youth is a plus, because this young man plays with no fear. He doesn't have any baggage carrying. He's excited by the fact that he has a new platform to shine on. And I just get the feeling, looking at him, that he could be a key to Spain's success on Sunday if it happens, regardless of the fact that he's only 17 years old.
Yeah, he looks like a young man that's strolling around the park and playing at fun. And that's how he's approached all the games. And you're right, he is a factor, because he's very direct. And when you look at the direct players that have come up against the English, they've been successful. And you tend to think, who is going to play him? Who is he going to come up against? How are they going to play against him? You can't suggest to me that a Kieran Trippier could keep him quiet. You can't suggest to me that a 50% fit Luke Shaw could keep him quiet, because he's such an X factor. We saw, of course, in the earlier games, in the quarterfinals, some of the wrong games, that he was very direct down the line. But guess what? Against the French, he started to play an inverted winger. I started to come in and play in the half spaces, turn and started to take people on, and scored that terrific goal with his left foot, as we see here. And I mean, that's what you're getting from him. A player that can mix his game up, understands the game so much and what it needs, and applies it accordingly. And that is a dangerous, dangerous player to come up against.
Yeah, and before we go, Brent, you are picking Spain to win this final, are you?
Yeah, I am. I normally get the England results wrong. I got it right in the last two occasions, but it'll be very wrong of me to suggest that England could go on and win this one. I just think Spain is too good.
Yeah, and did I get from you that, I'm not sure if it was as direct as I wanted it to be, that Colombia will beat Argentina on Sunday?
I would like for them to beat them, but it's everything that I've said. It's hard to go against Argentina, but for this one, I'll stick with Colombia. I'll stick with Colombia. Why not?
Ramrock isn't pleased, Brent.
I know. It's a 50-50 one with that one. It's a 50-50.
No, not 50-50. Go pick one team and support them.
I did Colombia. I did. I go with Colombia.
See you Monday, bright and early.
Sure, no problem.
Break time?
I guess. Let's just send him home to relax. Break time. He deserves a break.